Now we have the littlest children by a ways, and so now I periodically tell, like, your kids, tell on my children if they are doing something. If the little ones are doing something, come tell us. If you think we don't want them to do it, don't just bear with them.
We also have, given that it's not just once a week, we have kids who are all in school, and they share a school campus.
In church, so
They're in church, so they're together on Sunday. Sabbath dinner's Saturday night. They're together Saturday night, and all but the little ones are in school together, and except for the freshly graduated off to college ones, but they're on the same school campus, and so there'd be plenty of. We've had lots of conversations where it's like, oh, I have a news.
Yeah.
I come
Thought
bearing.
you'd maybe want to know
I
about
come bearing
that.
news about something that was said that you probably want to know happened in a 6th grade, whatever. And so yes, and I feel like that tentacled information reporting service has been fantastic.
because people are not being explosive emotionally about it. And that's really the foundation to that, is that we are confident that every other set of parents wants to hear. And would say, thank you for telling us this. I'll let you know what we find out.
And lots of just overlook it. Like, there's plenty of times where we're like, no, I'm not going to call them. It's fine. Overlook it.
Well,
just bear with.
yes, on the things that are just petty.
Other times where it's like, yeah, I think they'd want to know. I'll give them a little ring.
I'd say the neat thing for me has been seeing, it's not, now they just get along great and we have the same standards. Like, practically that started at a very young age, cultivating very specific things, right, that we could all see and kind of imitate. One was finishing your food. Like, we had slightly different standards sometimes about what happens with what's on your plate. But I feel like at least 8 years of my life have been spent making a child eat the food on their plate. And we all had similar standards, would do similar things.
But not exactly the same.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
And as parents, not only were we instilling that in our kids, but we were watching what each other were doing and helping enforce it. So, like, if someone didn't want to eat their food and you could tell they weren't, or they threw something on the ground, which happened rarely, you would go and say, they're violating your standard. And we never had a touchiness about that. But the thing I think that's hard for some folks to understand is it actually starts in those really early, small places that are practical and works out from there.
Practical and visible.
Practical and visible, and it's not like, and I think a lot of the fruit we see now is the result of a lot of that simple practical work.
When we have a baptism at church, when we're baptizing a child, one of the things we do is we have the congregation vow to help these parents in the Christian nurture of this child. And the parents have to be open to that kind of input. So probably the takeaway lesson in all of this is the prime value of not being defensive. When someone comes to you about something with regard to your kids, even if you conclude at the end of the day that they were wrong or all messed up, there's no reason to be defensive when they're...
Well, I would say I think we have a tremendous amount of camaraderie in raising our children, because we all expect to have problems and thistles, and we all expect that work. And so the solidarity of, like, oh, hey, there's something over there, and thank you for pointing out this thing that I didn't see over here, is because we're shoulder to shoulder doing the same thing with the same big
I would
mission.
also add, though, is the kids watching us respond to feedback, because that's a big one, because it enables them not to be defensive either, because we'll hear something, if it's something you need to do a lot of checking in on.
Yeah, and the kids could say, oh, crud, they're all coordinating this.
Well, there's that, but then there's the times, we say, let's hear what happened, and they know we're not automatically believing every tale, even if it's from family, everything that comes
Especially
out.
from Becca.
Yeah.
Well, they know not to be defensive. Like, we
making it up.
can ask them something without them feeling like we're accusing them. And I think that's a big thing, because it's learning how to navigate that as a parent. When you first hear something like, and then so you did this. It's like learning how to just check in is not the same thing as accusing. And I think
We've also had situations, which I assume that you've had, I don't know if you guys have had it yet, but where people outside the family are tattling for some reason or other, where it is a clear, like, I wouldn't care at all. Like, the thing that they're finding to be a problem is something that I find to be, like, mostly a virtue that I need to steer a little bit, where it's almost entirely rhetorical, where I'm talking to a kid afterward, like, okay, here's a better way to talk about that, so you don't get the responses you don't want to get. But it has been great to have family members where there is something shared, so that when they call, we do all agree that was an offense. It's time to take care of it. But I've had a couple in the last 12 months where I was thinking like, yes, my kid is exactly who I thought they were. And some,
You get to keep pounding away at that
some
one.
idolater was offended.
Maybe you told they were an idolater.
Yes,
With
exactly.
no softening of the edges.
Yeah, where it's just sort of like, okay, this conversation happened, and we have the rhetorical conversation, but it's just, you can't apologize for, doctrinal belief that's true.
Right.
It's like, but you can work better on how to communicate it. But there's plenty of times, I've had plenty of times now in conversations where people assume that our standards and our rules are different than they are. Where there's this assumed standard of like, you will always be nice and gentle, but you won't. I'm like, that's it. Just you'll be nice and
You'll
gentle.
never confront.
There will be no confrontation.
Yeah.
But our kids have had
I don't know
roiling-
why anyone who knows our family would think that would be what we would think.
Right.
So we've had our kids have had roiling debates that have spanned the different cousin groups that have gone on for days and even weeks, carried Sabbath dinner to Sabbath dinner, just standing disagreements where people did not get bent out of shape. Nobody lost their cool.
yeah.
You're learning how to
There
disagree
was
well.
there were no tantrums, there was nothing like that, where that's the kind of thing that could stress out a different family than ours maybe, but it's at least it has stressed out some other families.
What
But
was
it's,
it? Some kid at school
It
was
doesn't stress
saying
us out.
problem with that whole clan, they were talking about the whole clan of cousins, was that they all think the same thing. It's like if you ask any of the cousins in the hall what they think of something, they'll all have the same idea, which is really odd given how much they disagree amongst themselves all the time and do whatever. But the proof text of this was someone showing a Thomas Kincaid painting around to see they're all gonna say the same thing, and it was like down to like the sixth graders like doesn't even look like there's garbage cans in that world, like they were just all of them were like, I don't like it, I stand against it, even though I've never heard of Thomas Kincaid or considered it until today.